We're going to look now at the third part of the healing process, forgiveness. One of the most important things I ever learned about forgiveness is that it's not just about my feelings, but about making a choice to forgive. We all know how hard forgiveness can be. Every act of forgiveness costs us something. It means giving up our self-pity, giving up our desire for justice, and putting aside our pride.
Sometimes people think that by forgiving someone, you're approving of what they've done or you're excusing their behavior. When we forgive, we're not condoning negative behavior. And alongside forgiveness, we may well need to put in a boundary by saying something like, I'm not prepared to let you speak to me like that, or to keep lying to me, or to keep putting us into debt. Being clear with our partner about what is unacceptable and choosing to forgive are not mutually exclusive. They work hand in hand to bring healing to a marriage.
And forgiveness is not pretending that the hurt doesn't matter and trying to forget about it. Forgiveness is not denying the hurt and just hoping it'll go away. Forgiveness is not thinking our love for each other will somehow magically resolve any ways that we've hurt each other, so it doesn't matter. I think that's pretty much what I thought when we got married. I remember the first time I realised I had to say to Nikki, I forgive you. It was after a big argument we'd had about money, and I felt very hurt and accused. And it coincided with going away for a special weekend that we'd been planning and looking forward to for ages. And at first, I just tried to bury the hurt. But the result was I just felt more and more full of resentment and self-pity and went into this mood, which spoiled not only the weekend, but our relationship as well. But eventually, after 36 hours, I just couldn't contain it any longer, and I poured it all out to Nicky. He listened and really understood why I was upset, and then said he was sorry. It was at that point I realised for the first time I had to say out loud to Nicky, I forgive you. Now, I'm not proud of this, but I found that really hard, and I think I said it through gritted teeth. But the moment I'd said it, I felt completely different. The resentment and the self-pity left, and our relationship was restored. And we went on to have a great rest of the weekend together because my choosing to forgive had opened the way for us to draw close again.
Sometimes people have said to us, but I just can't forgive him or her for that. You don't understand. When we say, I can't forgive, what we're really saying is either I won't forgive or perhaps I don't know how to forgive. And often that's because we're waiting for something to happen before we can forgive. We may be waiting for the right feelings, or we're waiting for justice to be done, or we're wanting revenge first, or we're wanting to retaliate, wanting the other person to be punished. Then we think we'll be able to forgive. Forgiveness means choosing to let go of those desires, however strong they may be. The author C.S. Lewis wrote, forgiveness goes beyond human fairness. It's pardoning those things that can't readily be pardoned at all. If we don't forgive, if we don't release the other person, we'll be the one imprisoned by the negative emotions, by the bitterness, the resentment, the desire for revenge, and the anger that builds up inside us. Only forgiveness can set us free.
From a Christian viewpoint, forgiveness means releasing the person who's hurt us into God's hands, even if the other person doesn't apologize or recognize what they've done wrong. The Christian understanding of forgiveness is that God forgives us freely, and therefore we must forgive each other freely. And I find it helpful to think of forgiveness flowing into my life from God and then flowing out of my life to those around me, especially the person closest to me, Nikki. Whether you've got a Christian faith or not, we can all choose to forgive. Where there's forgiveness right at the heart of a marriage, it has unparalleled power to bring healing.
I want to talk about what happens when we use this process to heal the ways we hurt each other and break out of that downward spiral. St. Paul uses this phrase in the Bible, love keeps no record of wrongs. Imagine for a moment having a notebook that represents our married life. Each page of the notebook represents one day of our marriage. Every day we write down a list of the things we do or say or fail to do or say that are less than perfectly loving, that may hurt our husband or wife, sometimes slightly and sometimes deeply. On some days, the list will be shorter, and on other days, the list will be longer, and it may even go over the page occasionally. But every day, there'll be something we could put on the page. And if these things are not dealt with, the page will be turned and the list left intact. We then start to build up a backlog of resentment and bitterness. And even if we can't remember the details of the list, these things remain in the background of our marriage and will seriously spoil our intimacy. Forgiveness means tearing off each page with whatever's written on it and throwing it away. That means choosing to forgive however we feel, not letting the sun go down on our anger, keeping the drain clear, and keeping no record of wrongs until there's a clean page in front and none turned over behind. Then we can begin each day with a fresh start and no backlog between us. When we've been through this process of talking about our hurt, saying sorry and forgiving, we can start again together.
However, don't expect healing always to be instant. Apology and forgiveness remove the distance between us, but where there's deep hurt, it takes time for trust to be rebuilt, and forgiveness needs to be an ongoing process. That sometimes means choosing to forgive on a daily basis, each time the pain resurfaces.
And while rebuilding trust, we need to be gentle with each other and have an understanding of the bruising that's taken place. Being kind in the way we behave towards each other, going on forgiving, setting aside date nights, and comforting each other are all part of the process.
And this comforting may well be needed both ways, both towards a partner who may well feel a deep sense of shame for what they've done, as well as towards the one who's been hurt. This week, we'd encourage you to spend some time thinking about the hurt that your partner's told you about. The continuing conversations involve carrying on with the healing process of apologizing and forgiving each other and rebuilding trust between you.
You may still be wondering if we ever went to Tokyo for the weekend after that whole apple-throwing scenario. Well, by the evening, we were both still convinced of our own point of view, so we decided we needed to pray together about it. And it was only as I moved my focus off the issue and onto God that I suddenly became aware I'd been more concerned about letting our friend down than I had about supporting Scylla as a new mother. So I apologized for not seeing it from her point of view, and I said I would ring our friend after all and say we were unable to go for the weekend.
Well, when I realized that Nicky really understood how I felt, I said to him I'd probably be able to cope with going after all. So we went to Tokyo, and Nicky was very supportive, and we had a great time.
St. Paul's phrase, "love keeps no record of wrongs," comes from a beautiful description of love in the Bible. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast. It is not proud, it is not rude, it is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails.